Hello, and welcome to the Cleveland International Film Festival Film Slam Streams Post-Film Conversation for the Present. My name is Eric Siler, Professor of Communication, Film, and Media Arts, as well as moderator for this conversation. We are very pleased to be joined today by the director of The Present, Farah Nabulsi. Farah is a Palestinian British filmmaker and a human rights advocate. She has written and directed and produced a short fiction exploring Palestine-related topics that matter to her. Farah has spoken and screened her work internationally at film festivals, universities, and at the United Nations. Her current film, The Present, underscores the importance of freedom of movement as basic human rights. We are so pleased to be joined by the director today. Hello, Farah, and welcome.
Hello, hi. Lovely to be with you. I've understood that some of your students speak Arabic or are learning Arabic. So just a few words of, السلام عليكم. أنا كتير مبسوطة إنه فيني أحكي معاكم اليوم وإن شاء الله تفهموا شو عم بحكي, which basically translates as, it's really great to be with you today. And I hope that you're understanding what I'm saying, but I'm not sure the extent of the Arabic, but very nice to be with you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that greeting. I'm sure not only did our Arabic students appreciated that, but everyone did. Let's get right into it. The present. What a present that you gave to us. What a gift. Really, really remarkable film. Can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to actually make this film?
Yeah, sure. So I am Palestinian by origin. I was born, raised, educated in the UK, in the United Kingdom. But as a Palestinian, I've spent a lot of time in Palestine, traveling there, spending time there. And I've personally experienced the sort of frustrations of these checkpoints, as well as witnessed numerous times Palestinians experiencing these checkpoints and had discussions with people who quite literally live them every single day. And there's a very specific young man that I've gotten to know over the years, and he lives in Hebron. And in his particular case, he lives on a road, his home, he lives with his mother. And when he exits his home, to the right, he's not actually allowed to walk on the road. There's soldiers and they ask for your IDs. And if he's Palestinian, he's not allowed to walk on the road. To the left of his house, he walks 100 meters up approximately, and there's a checkpoint. So for this particular man, it's actually far more harsh than what is portrayed in the film. He has to go through a checkpoint no matter what he wants to do, where he wants to go, what he wants to buy, who he wants to see. And that really sort of resonated with me in terms of a story I wanted to tell. And I remember standing in front of the other side of the checkpoint with him, looking at it, and it had a turnstile. And I was asking him, so if you wanted to bring a couch home, what do you do? And if you wanted to bring, a big box, if you want, and that's where the kind of idea came from. But I was inspired to tell this story for all those people who have to live this exhausting, humiliating, frustrating process, some of them every day of their life, some of them numerous times a day. So that was the inspiration.
I see. So what did you actually shoot this film?
So, sorry, say that again?
Oh, well, where did you shoot the film? Where did the filming take place? Yes.
Oh, okay. So entirely in Palestine, in the West Bank, entirely in the Bethlehem area. So birthplace of Jesus, the Bethlehem area. And scene 2 of the film, actually, which is a different checkpoint to the rest of the film, where you have, if you watch the film, hundreds and hundreds of people passing through a checkpoint, is actually a real checkpoint. So you could almost say that one scene is almost like documentary, because the only fiction in that film is our protagonist, our actor Saleh Bakri, and everybody else were actually Palestinians actually going to work in this kind of monstrosity of a checkpoint. And that's a real infamous checkpoint in Bethlehem called Checkpoint 300. So Bethlehem.
Oh, interesting. Wow. Some good history and current information there. Let's talk a little bit more specifics about the young character. The younger, I know you mentioned the actor, the Sala. That someone that you knew, or did you audition him? How did you find him?
You know, it's wonderful how the world conspires because when I was writing this story, before I even began on the script, I just had this actor in my mind. He's actually a very seasoned actor. He's been in a number of feature films that have like won at Cannes International Film Festival and at Berlin and in Locarno. And these are all very top tier European film festivals. And so he's a seasoned actor. I'd seen him in a number of films. And when we came to write the script, and the actual script part, I was co-writing with Hind Shafani. She's a Palestinian filmmaker and she's a writer as well. And she said to me, who do you imagine for the role of Yusuf? And I said to her, you know, it's Saleh Beki. He's the actor that keeps coming in my mind. And I didn't know him personally. And she said, oh, I know him. I'll make the introduction. So I got introduced. He read the script. And despite him usually doing features, and like I said, he's a very seasoned actor, he really liked the story. He liked the simplicity of it. He could really relate to the character. He's Palestinian. And he's a sensitive soul, you know, and he really got it. And so I didn't need to audition anyone. He was who I wanted, and it worked out.
I'm glad that worked out because he did a really outstanding job.
Yeah.
For those who are watching, I had a chance to talk with Farah before we started the interview, and she shared with me that there was no plans to use a young girl in the film. So can you tell us a little bit, Farah, about how the young girl came about and where you actually found her?
Yeah. So the first draft of the script, and that was based on the story that I had initially written, did not have the character of the child. So it was a husband going through the process of going to buy his wife a gift. And after I sort of looked at the script the first time, I went, this does not represent a reality that I've seen, because I've been at these checkpoints and there are children. It's not that the children aren't at these checkpoints. And some of them even watched their parents humiliated. Some of them even have to sit next to their parents, who might even be blindfolded and their hands tied. Because in this film, I have him in a cage, but actually more commonly is that they are blindfolded and their hands are tied. So I really felt that was something I had to show, I had to represent. And so we rewrote it with Medium Kenj, who is the character of Yasmin. And the way I found her was, I was telling a friend of mine who's not in Palestine, and I wasn't in Palestine. I said to her, look, I really, I got to cast this 8-year-old girl. I need someone who speaks great Arabic. She's Palestinian, ideally Palestinian in Palestine. And I'd like her to look like her father. I mean, I could have cast someone who looked maybe more like the mother, but I really wanted her to look like the father. And already I've got Saleh Bakri cast, like this is who I'm having. And just, again, the world conspired, because she turns around and she says, what about my niece? And I said, what, your niece? And she shows me a picture, and I swear this girl looks more like her actor father, than she does her real father. But a complete coincidence was that her real father was actually already in the process of being hired as the production designer on the film. So it just came together beautifully, and I auditioned her. And when I met her, so she's the first person I auditioned, she really just had, I fell in love with her, expressive eyes, and she's just absolutely beautiful, and all of that, and a wonderful personality. She could handle herself with strangers. She could handle herself with confidence with adults, but it was her emotional intelligence that really, it just shone through. And my gut told me she was the right one, but because she's a completely untrained actress, she'd only been an extra on one film, even an extra who wasn't even shown, if you get my meaning. So anyway, I basically went and auditioned a few other people, a few other kids who are more trained actresses, and I just came right back to her. So that's how that happened.
Well, she did an outstanding job, and we'll touch on her more in a moment. But I just want to remind everyone that we're about halfway through our conversation with the director of the present, Farah Nabulsi. And if you'd like to ask questions, please put them in the Q&A portal, and we'll get to them as time allows. And one question that we did have come in is, When people are put in a cage, how long do they usually stay in the cage?
So, as mentioned, a cage is less often, even though it does happen, and even children have been placed in cages. Um, the timing can be 20 minutes to 10 hours. It literally is that arbitrary. It literally is that unknown. It could be that they wait and they've decided that this particular person is seriously under suspicion, for example, and then they would keep them there until they decide that the shift is over and they need to transport them, or they might, walkie-talkie someone and come and transport. But even if there is, no suspicion, it is completely up to the soldiers to determine how long they want to keep someone in a cage or tied up or blindfolded. And it can range from minutes to hours. It can, it's really that arbitrary, which is what is so the unpredictability and the arbitrariness of it is what is also so frustrating and so demeaning, that you just don't know. You just don't know.
Right. And so that, and that's a way of life for a lot of people, knowing when you're going to a checkpoint, you don't know what your fate holds.
Exactly.
Interesting. Um, with the film itself, the Yasmin Medium, I think that's how you pronounce her actual name.
Miriam.
Medium. Okay.
Medium. It's like Mary. It's Mary in Arabic. Medium.
Okay. Medium. Medium did a really outstanding job, especially when the scene when she decided to push the refrigerator across. And for those students that are studying film out there, these films have what we call a dramatic arc, occur to it, and you did a really, really good job of building up to that point. When she pushed the refrigerator across, we felt the frustration of her father, the long day, and so forth, and the ultimate goal with that. So it was just, and just the reaction to everyone at the end. I think that everyone just gasped at that reaction. Can you just tell us about some of the reactions and response you received to the film, and maybe to that scene in particular?
Well, look, first of all, to that scene in particular, I'm very sad to say that the biggest part of the fiction of this film is that ending. Because sadly, the more usual, more realistic outcome would be brutal force, maybe lethal force, maybe arrest of father and child. And so it actually was the least, the most fiction element of the film. But I did want to offer something more hopeful, and I wanted to offer this suggestion that it's, the younger generation, whether it's in Palestine or in the world, that carries that hope and even that sensibility that the adults have kind of descended into stupidity and immaturity and in that sense. And it was the younger, and interestingly, of course, a female, in the sense that took agency and took control. But sadly, that is the most fictional part in terms of the outcome. Now, in terms of reactions to the film, it has been absolutely awesome. As mentioned to you before the call, when you were asking me, we had an incredible world premiere at Clermont-Ferrand International Film Festival in France, which is considered the creme de la creme of short film festivals in the world. Every year they have around 9,000 submissions. They pick about 140 films in competition. And so we were selected to that, but then we won the audience award at that festival. And then we moved on. We had Cleveland International, where we got our award there. The film has qualified for the Oscars. We've won audience and jury awards at over 17 festivals now in the US and in Europe. And what that tells me is that the audiences and the people around the world, the international people are receiving it. It's resonating with them. And that is a beautiful thing. So yes, it's the reactions have been fantastic. And, in terms of the ending, yes, it leaves people, it's not a predictable ending in that sense. But I hope that the entire story is resonating, but it's been received very well. Very well.
Well, that's good. That's really good to hear. Because this film, I see it as like a slice of life in the Palestine area, and with something like this could actually happen. And usually you hear a lot of negative things that do happen. And I know you said that's unrealistic of what could have happened, but in some sense it could be realistic because sometimes people do have a heart and do give in as well too. And people like films that have kind of like a feel good kind of an ending.
I think it was more to do with when I say is that, the story it's a fiction, but it is based on fact. There's over 100
Right.
checkpoints, 100 Israeli checkpoints in the occupied West Bank, and another 100 flying checkpoints, which can appear anywhere, anytime, which is what that roadblock, which is one scene in the film when the truck is not allowed to go through, that is a flying checkpoint essentially. So these checkpoints are there. So I know that this is based on a reality. I don't know a story though of when, a young child, or someone disobeyed the rule in that sense, used the main road and got away with it. That's what I mean by. So of course,
Right.
I'm hopeful that, there will always, and you see there is one soldier who actually sort of turns to the other and says, look, let's make an exception. And, at the end of the day, humans are humans, and I would like again to hope and think that there is always going to be empathy, and there's always going to be people who are not necessarily comfortable with what they're doing in their jobs, if you like. But sad to say, it's not that I heard or met someone who had experienced that. You see what I mean?
Right, exactly. And I just want to compare what you said. It's not a direct comparison. Here in the United States, checkpoints do pop up, especially around the holidays. Police will set up checkpoints to try to see if anyone's driving under the influence of alcohol. So I'm just letting our audience know how random checkpoints do pop up here in the U.S. One question that we have coming, it's an interesting question. The people who played the actors in your film, the soldier actors in your film, were they real soldiers or have they ever served in the military?
No, not at all. So this is where the sort of tragedy of all of it is. You see, so those soldiers are representing Israeli soldiers. The story is about Palestinians, right? Going back and forth through these checkpoints. All of those actors are Palestinians, and they are Palestinians who experience those checkpoints in reality. So it was a very bizarre scenario because now you're basically handing, these military uniforms, actual military weapons to these Palestinian actors and saying, act as that soldier who essentially is your oppressor in reality. In fact, the female soldier in the film had her home raided 2 weeks later by the Israeli military. You see what I mean? And they took her brother. They arrested her brother.
Yeah.
And
And
she
not
sent me
because
the
of the
video.
film. Well, not because of the film.
No, nothing to do
No,
with the film.
okay.
It's part,
Right.
that's another part of control mechanisms, and
Exactly.
so this environment is not, it's not a particularly comfortable environment in that sense. But there's no way that these were real soldiers, because there's no way I could have gone and hired Israeli soldiers to act Israeli soldiers. It might be like, no. So no, they are completely actors, but it's not that they're acting an unknown character, if you like. They come across these soldiers in reality every single day. And that's why they're so good at it in some ways. They speak Hebrew. They even use some of the slang that the soldiers use with them. Shake it, for example, that word, the female soldier, she keeps saying, shake it, because that's actually used. And what makes it even more bizarre was that the local Palestinians, when we built our set of this checkpoint, actually thought a real checkpoint had been built in their area. And I was sending out runners and I was saying, please tell them it's not real, because of course that's heartbreaking for them. And it did make me feel good in the sense that I must have done a really good job because I designed the checkpoint, but obviously, and they were turning their cars around, and I wanted them to know this isn't real, but they are so used to checkpoints erected. And so, yeah, it's a reality for them.
Right. Oh, that's really fascinating information that you just shared with us about the checkpoints and the soldiers as well. We're almost out of time. This is one question I had for you. I know we're running out of time, but I just want to get a couple more points. What has your experience been like personally at checkpoints? Have you experienced, you know, negativity or?
Yes, yeah. No, personally, I have, of course, and I've also, some are when you're walking through a checkpoint, and some are also when you're in a vehicle. I've been removed from a vehicle because I was with non-Palestinians and asked to go in a different vehicles where it was like okay, or having to use a separate road to other people who are not Palestinians. So this is an element of apartheid in the sense of, and I've experienced that firsthand. Um, and I've been with, for example, that young man I told you about, where he has been held up, and I've had to sit there, watch him basically be, overly checked, the whole lift this, lift that, do this. I've also been in a situation where I've watched a very young female soldier shout at an elderly couple. I mean, an old man and an old woman shouting at them and in a very disrespectful way, as well as, of course, the stories that go far, far worse than that, where I've met a lady who, gave birth at a checkpoint, so things, the scale of what I've personally experienced, I can't compare to the stories of others who experience far more, and the things I've witnessed versus them being done to me personally. So it's a mix of that, but yeah.
Well, um, were you concerned about any type of retaliation by creating a film like this?
To me, I'm using art to tell a story. It's for me, it's a personal story. It's not an attack on anyone. It's a
Mhm.
representation of a reality, a cruel, absurd reality. And I'm interested in the truth. Okay, I'm interested in films that have depth, have meaning, and I want to do what director Alessandro Inarritu said when he said cinema must try raise the global social conscience. Okay, those are the kind of films I'm interested in. Now, is it Mama Africa who said, if my truth becomes political, there's nothing I can do about that, right? If my truth, ruffles feathers and people are going to be angry, there's nothing I can do about that. I don't set out to do that. I just want to tell truthful stories that are human stories and that examine the human dynamic, the human spirit of coping with such a circumstance. So I did not think about that, and I don't want to think about that. It's and so far I haven't been on the receiving end of that. Like I mentioned to you, international audiences are receiving it and it's resonating with them. And I don't think you can deny a truth. It's there. There's nothing, like I said to you, I've actually made it a little more less dramatic than actually sometimes things can end up.
Mm.
So
That's remarkable. That's really good to stay true to your art and and stating the truth. Well, before I let you go, can you just tell everyone what you're working on now?
So I'm working on a bold, original, character-driven drama thriller feature film. It'll be my first feature film. It's a fiction, and it's about fatherhood. It's about loss of a child. It's about self-absolution, and it is set in the sort of geopolitical landscape of Palestine, Israel. But Yeah, I won't go into details of that, but it's exciting, and hopefully we'll have the same actor that we had in the present, Saleh Bekri. He's on board, and I'm excited to make this film. So
Well, great. We can't wait to see the film. Well, Farah, thank you so much for joining us today, providing us with a wealth of insight and information on, life going on in the at checkpoints. I encourage our students and the teachers to please continue to do more research and more history and more reading information about what goes on in different parts of the world. And thank you so much for joining us. And Farah, do you want to just say a special goodbye to people, to our Arabic speaking students?
شكرا كتير إنه شفتوا الفيلم وإن شاء الله حبيتوها ومع السلامة. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the film and bye bye.
Okay, well, thank you. And for everyone, for more information about the upcoming 45th Cleveland International Film Festival, please continue to follow CIFF on social media and visit clevelandfilm.org. I'm Eric Siler. Thank you.
Thank you.